everyone's mind is and should be on the transition and what its real import is. In some respects, it is undoubtedly very significant. The fact that there's a black family in the White House can't help being very meaningful. And it does yield many opportunities. It also teaches some lessons. The last election was unique in U.S. history in that the Democratic Party had two candidates, one a woman, one an African American. That would have been unthinkable not long before. And there's a lesson there. The country's just become more civilized. And we know why, and the reasons why do teach lessons. It's a result of the activism of the 1960s. People, mostly like you, who really did initiate changes that just civilized the country substantially. Not only, this is a symbol of it, but there's many other respects, completely different attitudes towards human rights, women's rights, minority rights, environment, opposition to aggression, just recognition of aspects of American history that were really suppressed, like the original sins, which at least are now somewhat recognized. Okay, those are important steps forward, and the lesson remains. It should be drawn today. You're not going to read that lesson in the newspapers or in books, but that's exactly what the facts of the last election teach us. I don't happen to like any of the candidates, but that doesn't change the fact that it's a very significant change. As far as policies go, we can be fairly confident that there'll be some changes, but I don't think people should have illusions. One of the reasons for the changes is that the Bush administration, especially in its first term, was completely off the spectrum of the political spectrum in the U.S. It's a pretty narrow spectrum, but it has some variation. And they were just off the spectrum. I mean, the arrogance, the contempt even for allies, the violence simply alienated even their closest friends. The United States, the popularity of the United States plummeted to an all-time low. After the first term, they did get rid of some of the more extreme figures. Rumsfeld was kicked out, Wolfowitz, Feith, a couple others. They couldn't get rid of Dick Cheney because he was the administration, but the periphery around him mostly left, and the posture became somewhat more moderate. Condoleezza Rice, when Obama was elected, predicted that his term would be pretty much like Bush's second term, which is not unreasonable. Bush's second term was kind of more back to the normal centrist spectrum. And I think we're likely to find, in fact we already see, that the policies coming along are not that different. The reaction to Obama has been just rapturous. You followed it in Europe, I'm sure, in this last trip. That was partly a reaction to Bush not being there. It was kind of like Inauguration Day, you know, by Bush. But so the relief that this is gone was part of it. And also he's more forthcoming. Back about almost 50 years ago, during the Kennedy administration, we're at the peak of the missile crisis, when the world was really facing possible destruction, and the Kennedy administration was taking a very adventurous position that was threatening the world. But they weren't informing the British, their closest ally. The British Prime Minister, the only way he could find out anything was from what British intelligence could dig up. And the reasons were explained by a senior advisor in the Kennedy administration, internally, of course. He said, Britain is our lieutenant. The fashionable word is partner. And they like to hear the fashionable word. But when anything serious is going on, we do it, and we don't bother telling our can. Well, in Europe, Obama understood that he was talking to the Europeans as partners. That's the fashionable word. Talks to the American people as participants, the fashionable word. But what goes on? You can draw your own conclusions about what the internal discussion is. I doubt that it's changed. Well, we do have some evidence about the Obama administration, not a lot actually. Some of the evidence comes from the campaign. In fact, the most insightful commentary on the campaign, I think, came from the public relations industry, which basically manages and runs elections in the United States. As you may know, Obama won the award for Best Marketing Campaign of the Year from the advertising industry's primary journal. And executives were just exultant. They talked quite openly in the business press. They said, we've been marketing candidates like commodities ever since Reagan, and we've never achieved anything like this. It's going to set a new standard for corporate boardrooms of style and so on and so forth. And so it was a real achievement. The campaign was similar to the norm in some respects, in fact, in most respects. One of them was that it avoided issues. So you learned very little from the campaign about what the candidates' positions are on issues. In the case of Obama, his marketing campaign presented him as basically a kind of blank slate. You could write your hopes and wishes on it, and you were contradicted. So people did it, and he felt very happy. And now that he calls Europeans partners, not lieutenants, they're happy too. But what does it mean? Well, it means something. There's good reason why the public relations industry, which runs campaigns, it does run them as marketing campaigns and keeps away from issues. They read polls carefully. And they know perfectly well, as you can discover if you do too, that on a host of major issues, both political parties are well to the right of the population. So you don't want issues to come up. You want personalities, body language, nice guy, that sort of thing. And that's pretty much the way the electoral extravaganzas work here. That's a problem, but it's a problem for American democracy. More generally, doesn't tell us much about Obama. The Obama campaign and the media, which agree, have an expectation for the future. And whether their expectation turns out to be correct or not is going to make a big difference. Their expectation, which they're quite open about, is that the army that was mobilized, they did mobilize an army. They inspired a lot of people, a lot of especially young people were enthusiastic, excited, and felt they want to do something, which can be important. And they intend that this army shall follow instructions from the leadership and push forward with what they call brand Obama. In other words, whatever brand Obama turns out to be, the army is supposed to get mobilized and ring doorbells and sell brand Obama. Well, they may agree to do that, or they may not. The army, the people who are energized and inspired might choose a different course, as they have in the past, for example, in the 60s. And it can make a big difference, as it did then.